the instruction to take a big breath is actually an instruction to change the height of the larynx. It has nothing to do with the quantity of air. It has to do with the height of the larynx. Then, how much air do you actually need? Just enough for the task at hand. Do you guys know the words of Silent Night?
Yeah.
Can you say with me the words of Silent Night? Silent night, holy night. Good. Did some of you even breathe before you started to say that? No. How long were we speaking? Like 5 or 6 seconds, right? If you didn't even take a breath and then were still able to phonate, either breathe or speak or sing for 6 seconds on no air, why do we think we need 26 seconds worth of air to sing a 6-second phrase? That doesn't compute, right? If you have a 6-second phrase and you sing and you take a 26-second breath, how much air are you left with? All right, mathematician, if you sing for 6 seconds and you took a 26-second breath, you have 20 seconds worth of air that you have to manage, right? That air has to go somewhere. Air goes where air goes. Ergo. We just demonstrated that we don't need to take these giant breaths to do a lot of stuff because we have the capacity to use our voice with very little air. It actually does not take very much pressure from the lower vocal folds to get them to come together and vibrate. We think it does, but how often do you think about breathing while you are talking? Probably never, right? The only people that do that are like she didn't do it as much anymore, but when she was like 6, she'd be like, "Hey, Daddy, we went outside and..." Remember that? Yeah. But they're so excited about something, but they don't know how to structure phrases in the brain and know where to actually just take regular pauses and pause for dramatic effect. Does that make sense? So we've learned over the years, some of you have a little bit more life experience than others, how to pace yourselves with your breath, not using a whole bunch. But then we come to singing time and we chuck all of that out the window and do So our vocal folds are mere valves. That's its function. Its function is to keep stuff out of the airway. Okay? If you get something past your airway, let's say a whole bunch of water, what happens? You die. Yeah. Pneumonia, so water in the lungs, that's a warning sign to your body that death is near, right? So the function of the vocal folds is to keep stuff out of there. Has anybody ever got something down the wrong tube? What is your body's response? No way, Jose, right? It says, get out of here. So that's its job. It's a valve. It just keeps things from going in, right? It is, though, mere flesh, just tissue. It can only handle so much pressure. Right? If you have so much pressure below it, it will burst. Can you all take a big breath and then hold it? Now let it out. Did you hear how much force that was when you came out? That's essentially what you're doing when you're singing. Your vocal folds can only keep back so much pressure. If there's there's 2 ways that most people handle that pressure. Either they will put the clampers on. Silent night, holy night. Breath time. All is calm. Breath time. Oh, every breath can't be a giant breath because there's just not that much capacity in there. And the air has to go somewhere. And where's it going? To my head right now. That's example 1. That's what Steve does. Don't do as Steve does. Example 2 is silent night, holy night. At what point during my singing did my vocal folds come together all the way?
After a second.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 notes in, right?
That's what I do.
That's what she does. Don't do what she does. But that one's more common, I think, than the breath stacking that I do. Has anybody ever done like we have these really long phrases, maybe a song by David Wright, where you just there's no breath written into the song at all, right? And you plan with your neighbor, I'm going to breathe here and you're going to breathe there, right? We do this staggered breathing stuff, right? In those moments, I'm exhaling air because I've had so much built up inside. In reality, I only need this amount of air to complete this task. Any more than that is
Stress.
stress and tension. Excellent. Cool. So, the reason why we've been given that instruction, and I'll finish up here in a second, is that we heard somebody singing Silent Night, and they said, ooh, can you take a bigger breath? Can you get a little bit more full on that? And so you go, Silent Night, and they go, ooh, I like how warm that sounds, without paying any attention to how much air is just booshing out. They liked how warm that was. That's usually the term you hear, right? Did my larynx descend? Did I not get a warmer tone? I did. But what was the baggage? That wasted energy, that wasted air, that wasted sound. What I should have been told was, you're singing with a little bit higher larynx, you're giving me a little bit of a thin sound, when this part of the song, we're actually going for a little bit of a different color. And there are lots of ways to do this. There are lots of images that I could give you to actually just to get you to lower your larynx without thinking about it. Or we could do something physiological too. Let's try one image. Put your hand right here. It's on your larynx. I want you to think about something real sad. Oh, and say, oh no. Oh, can you get just close to a sob and go, oh. Did you feel your larynx, how low that is?
Yeah.
Yes, good. Cool. It also has something to do with the venues in which we sing. This is a terrible place to sing in terms of laryngeal height, because if you've ever sung in a stairwell or a bathroom, it's like, oh my gosh, I sound amazing. Or the shower, ooh, I could sing in here all day. You're on the water. That's because in reverberant places, our natural tendency is, because we have a different reaction to the sounds, is that our larynx descends. We sound fuller in more reverberant places. In less reverberant places, like this vacuum, our larynges tend to be just a little bit higher. That was a Swedish man that discovered that.
So is the reason we run out of air because our larynx is not in the right place?
Nice. Thank you. Almost. The two are not related. The reason why we run out of air, because if you take 26 seconds worth of air and then start to sing, but you're one of those that gasses it out at the beginning, you just gave away more than half of your air on the first sound. Silent night. And I didn't have enough, because I gave away most at the altar, and now they want more, right? So, or silent night, holy night. Oh, I'm not doing too much of a parody of myself as I do that, but it's because at some point there's just too much air and my body is just releasing it. All is calm, and I'm just on the consonants. They're just like, hey, we're free. It's because there's just too much pressure, and so the vocal folds they can't handle it. It gets complicated. One more complication when we ascend in pitch. Baritones and leads and tenors, bless your hearts. As we ascend in pitch, our vocal folds stretch out and they thin. Has anybody ever played with one of those yellowish rubber bands? What happens when you stretch it? It thins out, right? The same thing happens with our vocal folds. As we ascend in pitch, our thyroid cartilage rocks down and our vocal folds thin out. That means that we've gone from silent night to silent night. There's just less mass touching each other. It sounded terrible. When we sing in our lower voice, we sing with more mass, and when we sing higher, there's less. So if we have the capacity to hold back this much air, Silent night. That same quantity of air is going to be too much for this little bit of mass to handle. Silent night. Same breath, octave apart, but because my vocal folds are thinner, they have less resistance to that pressure. As you ascend in pitch, your pressure needs to decrease. And the quantity of air for most of you needs to decrease.
And many of us, when we go up, are thinking that we have to drive way more air just to get ourselves through it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's just literally the opposite. So part of this is about either you take so much air that it's beyond capacity and the correction is lots of air coming out as you start to sing, and then you feel like, wow, I took a huge breath and I'm already running out of air. Or you keep all of that air in and just use a little of it and try to take a new breath. After just a little while, all of the oxygen is out of that air,
Yep.
and you feel like you have no air.
You're full
if
of-
you didn't
you're
need
full of-
oxygen, you could keep singing.
You're full of it, but it's not usable air.
It's not usable, and you're actually in a panic. You're in a quandary. I've got all this stuff. I've got to get rid of it, but I'm also supposed to still be singing, sort of, I guess, right? So you get very, very uncomfortable. That's one set of issues. The second set of issues is that when you have too much air inside of you for your little vocal folds to control,